Happy March, folks, and welcome back to #AskGSM, episode 483 here today for Wednesday, March 1st, 2023. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great week so far. Crazy that the month of March is already upon us. Today is actually Mandalorian Day to the Season 3 premiere of The Mandalorian dropping on Disney+. I have not had a chance to watch it as of yet, as of this recording. I will definitely check it out a little bit later on. I'm looking forward to that. The timing is perfect. I actually just finished Clone Wars, the animated show. I only started it with Alexis a couple of months ago. We technically watched the Clone Wars precursor movie back in July of last summer. We watched a few episodes, kind of got distracted with other shows and stuff like that. Got back into it in December, started with like season 1, episode 2 or 3, and then literally finished over 100 episodes and 7 seasons of the show in like 2.5 months. We binged a whole lot yesterday, finished the 7th season. Fantastic show. I've fallen back in love with Star Wars. And I've watched all the movies. I've watched all the recent Disney Plus shows, Andor, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett. I've enjoyed all the shows. But it wasn't honestly really until Obi-Wan Kenobi came out the show. And I know a lot of people talked and trashed it and whatnot. I'll keep this brief as I'm on my Star Wars tangent right now. That was really honestly the show that kind of got me back into Star Wars. I was already watching all the shows, and I love Mandalorian, but that show was like, wow, like this shit is great. And rewatching all the movies last year with Alexis made me fall in love with the franchise all over again. So I went back and watched Clone Wars, finished that, loved it. Mandalorian out today. Looking forward to watching that later and what the rest of the season has in store. But we're not talking Star Wars today. We're talking wrestling. That's what you guys came here to hear me talk about. And that's what we're going to do. So if you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Let's get right into it. Central Man Network, first from YouTube. What's next for Liv Morgan? I laugh because RJ and I have had this running gag for years now. Maybe not like years, but like probably for the last year and a half in AEW with Rusev, Miro, whatever. What's next for Miro? I mean, clearly nothing because he hasn't been on the show in forever. But we had this running gag like, all right, he's done with this. What do you do with him next? Liv Morgan is kind of one of those people for me where she doesn't have this endless cycle of storyline development. And not in terms of like, oh, she's not good or she has no story, no character. Not in that way. Like in the way that WWE books her. Like with Rollins, for example. Rollins has like to me, a long-term character arc. Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns. Liv Morgan ain't on that level. But even like Rhea Ripley's had like a long-term character arc. Charlotte Flair's kind of all over the place. But you can always bank on her being on the show, being in the title picture, doing something significant. Liv Morgan, not so much. She's one of those people they plug in wherever they need her. Someone needs a tag team partner for a tag team title match at Mania, you plug her in. You need a contender of the month for the Raw Women's Championship, you plug her in. You need someone to hold the SmackDown Women's Championship for a couple months before you put the belt back on Ronda Rousey, you plug her in. So, she's in that spot still right now. She's still very over. She had a great showing in the Royal Rumble. She was in there for as long as Rhea before she got tossed out. She had a very good showing in the Elimination Chamber. She's lost a lot lately. I think she lost to, she's facing Rhea this week on SmackDown. Probably losing there as well, as she should, considering Rhea is contending for the championship in Mania. I don't really know what you do with her next. They were softly teasing an alliance with Raquel. And I could see Rhea maybe beating Liv, beating up on her afterward, and then Raquel comes out teasing a future feud for the SmackDown Women's Championship, hopefully, between Raquel and Rhea on SmackDown, kind of rekindling their rivalry from NXT. They worked really well together in NXT. No surprise, they're great friends in real life, so would love to see it. But yeah, as far as Liv goes, I think, I don't know if they're doing a number one contenders tag team women's match at WrestleMania or a multi-team tag team title match at Mania. I assume we're getting a multi-team match with the women at Mania for the tag titles or a number one contenders match with the winners getting a title shot at night 2. That's what I would do. They've done that before. I don't know if they would do that again. We'll talk more about the tag team title situation for the women later on. But with, there's a lot of questions about Damage Control here today. I thought it was the second one I'm going to answer here in a second, but that's about something else. With Liv teasing the Raquel alliance, it's just so fucking lazy to me. We talked about it on WrestleRant Radio last week. RJ and I, the clip is up here on the channel. I just think it's so lazy that, all right, Liv, she's got nothing going on. Let's put her in a tag team. Raquel's got nothing going on. Put her in a tag team. It's just so formulaic, cookie cutter bullshit booking. And it's so lazy. Like, give me an actual story that I could sink my teeth into. And I'm sure the women would want that as well. Liv was like going crazy after she lost the championship and then went all of nowhere. She feuded briefly with Sonya. She beat her a couple times and that was it. So I don't really, honestly, I truly do not know what's next for Liv Morgan aside from maybe being involved in the women's tag team title match or a number one contenders match at WrestleMania. I wouldn't be shocked if she's not on the show at all. But after being champion last year, winning the Money in the Bank briefcase, she's had a really good last year. I think it would be pretty disappointing if she was not involved in the show in some form or fashion. Micah Does It from YouTube, their first question was, who would you want to see Damage Control, or would you want to see rather, get Damage Control get 2 more members added to the group, and who would you want to see join? I'm actually going to go the other way with this, and I was thinking about this earlier. Honestly, after watching Raw on Monday, I would rather see Damage Control implode after Mania, because they just lost the tag titles. That was kind of what was keeping them together, and the Becky feud. Regardless of whether we get Bayley and Damage Control, all of Damage Control versus Becky, Trish, and Lita at Mania, or we get Trish and Bayley one-on-one, honestly, I would break up the group after Mania. I would not add more members. I don't think that would solve anything. The only person that would make sense to me, I know Candice for a lot of people made sense at one point. She's better as a babyface. She's not exactly over right now. I mean, it might not be the worst thing if she joined Damage Control, but, you know, Candice is an option. Indy Hartwell's an option. There's an alliance there as well, previously established between Indy and Candice. You could do that as well. I just think the group has been a bust, and I like all 3 women in the group. Bayley, Dakota, Io, they're all terrific. The booking's been not great. It really hasn't helped the Raw Women's division much at all. It's gotten Dakota back in the company and Io on the main roster, which was key. But honestly, coming out of Mania, if we get a draft, and I think we should, I would bump Io to SmackDown, or, you know, I would bump one of the members to SmackDown. Break up, I mean, I know, like, oh, you're breaking up another women's tag team. There is no fucking division, let's be honest. There is no women's tag team division. Plus, they've already been champions twice. I'm good. So break them up, put Io on by herself on SmackDown, keep Bayley on Raw, and I would go from there. So that's what I would do personally, and I don't think they'll do that. I think they'll probably just keep it going, because Bayley, it was her big idea, and it's not really her fault. It's just that they feel like 3 random women put together, and the booking has been abysmal. They're really not a threat at all. I mean, they were tag team champions for, 4 or 5 months? No one gave a shit because they never defended the fucking things. Maybe once in December, and that was it, before they lost it on Monday. So anyway, I would just, coming out of Mania, it's a fresh start, break them all up together, just break them together all together. Break them all up, rather, all together, and then move on from there with them as single stars. That's what I would do personally. His second question, is Vince McMahon secretly booking WrestleMania? The timing of this question is perfect because I think it came out today earlier from @WrestleVotes, the insider WWE Twitter account, that Vince McMahon apparently had some say in Brock and Omos, unsurprisingly, having a say in that match being booked for Mania. That was like a Vince idea, and it got pushed through. Maybe Triple H doesn't give a fuck. Like, he has to give Vince, he has to throw bone at some point. The guy's the chairman after all. He may not be in charge of creative, but he doesn't want to piss off his dad-in-law, or his father-in-law doesn't want to piss off his boss. So he's like, all right, listen, I'm going to book 90% of the Mania card. If you want 1 or 2 matches, that's fine. I'll give you Brock and Omos and Bray versus Bobby, because those matches have Vince McMahon written all over them. Who could possibly give a fuck? I can't imagine Triple H thought that would be a good idea. We'll talk more about that momentarily, but I don't think he's secretly booking Mania, to be honest. I know at one point, a year ago, before Vince got ousted from Power, the report was that Cody would face John Cena at WrestleMania. And that makes absolutely no fucking sense. And I would love to see the match at some point, but like currently in their current roles makes no sense at all. So I don't think it's a Vince McMahon Mania. I think if it was a Vince McMahon Mania, we would not be getting Bianca and Asuka and Rhea and Charlotte or Roman and Cody, to be honest. I don't know if Vince saw that as the Mania main event. Either way, he probably has some say in some matches, like the shitty part of the cards. I'm not even completely absolving Triple H of all issues with this card, but it does really feel like Brock and Omos was a Vince McMahon idea. Take that report from WrestleVotes for what it's worth. Take it with a grain of salt, but I can honestly believe the fact that Vince had his fingerprints all over that, and then Triple H was just like, all right, old man. All right, old man, I'll give you your fucking match at Mania with Lesnar and Omos. Go sit in the corner, enjoy the match to yourself, pleasure yourself to the idea of Brock versus Omos, and let me have the rest of the card. I can honestly see that being the case. His next question, do you think that John Cena will give WWE one more run like how Edge is doing right now? No, I don't. I think the days of John Cena and Edge, the funny thing with Edge is that honestly, more so than anyone else in the last 10 years, is more of a quarter timer, like a 3/4 timer than anyone else. And by that, I mean he's not a part timer. He has wrestled on more pay-per-views and on more TV matches than literally any other fucking part timer they have used in the last decade. Triple H had maybe one TV match when he became a part timer in 2012 or 2011, whatever it was. The guy had very rarely any television matches, barely wrestled on pay-per-view. Undertaker maybe had one or two TV matches in 2013, never wrestled on TV after that, I don't think, before he retired in 2020, only really wrestling once a year. Goldberg, I don't think he had a single fucking TV match in the time that he was with WWE. He may still not be done, but he never wrestled on TV. Brock never wrestles on TV. The list goes on and on. Shane, I don't know if, Shane kind of, but still. Edge has wrestled a lot for WWE on pay-per-views. He's wrestled at Manias. He's competed in Rumbles. He's been at SummerSlam. He's been at, has he been at Survivor Series? I don't know if he's been at Survivor Series yet. He came back in 2020. He was hurt in 2020 for Survivor Series. 2021, was he there? I mean, he wouldn't have been involved in the brand split shit. No, he wasn't at Survivor Series 2021. And then this past year, he wasn't there either. So he hasn't been involved in the Survivor Series, but he's done the Saudi shows. He's done Clash of the Castle. He's even worked fucking Elimination Chamber and Extreme Rules and Backlash twice. He's worked a lot of different shows. Hell in the Cell. So Edge has been involved in a lot of these shows. He's wrestled on TV. He headlined Raw the other week with Austin Theory for the United States Championship, and it was not a quick angle either. So anyway, I don't see Cena ever having that run again. The last full-time Cena run we got was back in 2018 on the road to WrestleMania. He was wrestling almost regularly on Raw and SmackDown at that point, leading up to that 2-minute squash against The Undertaker at Mania where he got beat very quickly. I think the days of Cena competing that often in WWE are over. We're lucky he even comes back at all. He doesn't have that Rock schedule yet, and I do think, honestly, in my personal opinion, Cena is more willing to make time for WWE than The Rock. I know The Rock is busier than Cena, but I feel like The Rock really wanted to make time to come back to WWE and wrestle a match or two. He would have done so by now. He wouldn't be going 10 years in between matches. I mean, this is a hiatus. If you're not counting the Eric Rowan match, and even if you are, his absence from the ring is now as long as it was from when he left the first time in 04, 05, and then came back in 2011. Think about that for a second. That's fucking crazy. So anyway, no, I don't see Cena ever coming back for a full-time mini run like Edge. Edge has been back for 3 years now. He may be done soon. We don't know. With Cena, he'll come back for the occasional match. I'm glad he's even coming back at all for WrestleMania. But I think the days of him wrestling, he wrestled on SmackDown a couple of months ago, but beyond that, he never really wrestles on Raw or SmackDown at all. And I think those days are pretty much over at this point. Emmanuel A. He's got a lengthy question here. Do you think Omos versus Brock Lesnar plays to Brock Lesnar's strengths? There's been a lot of arguing about whether it's a waste of Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania or the visual of an F5 to Omos justifies it. To play devil's advocate for the latter, WrestleMania is more of a spectacle-first show and arguably catered towards the casual fans. And modern Lesnar matches are arguably more about spectacle, quote-unquote, and him just throwing people around. You said around twice. Omos getting hit with suplexes and an F5 is an easy WrestleMania moment, regardless of how match quality actually turns out. The thing with that, though, is that we've seen Bobby, beat Omos before. Same thing with Braun Strowman. They have both beaten, picked up, done that shit to Omos before, so it's honestly not really all that impressive that Brock can do that. You're right. It feels like a Mania moment. That's what they're going for. I feel like a fucking idiot for even hoping that Brock would have an actual competitive match nowadays. And he kind of has with Roman. The SummerSlam match was great, but it's really a lot of spam, finishers, fests and shit like that. Just a lot of finishers and a lot of big moves, nothing really technical about it. We really haven't had a Brock match like that in forever, and we probably never will again. Whatever. But, with the Brock matches and that, it honestly is the ultimate Brock Lesnar match for him to be facing someone in his level at Mania, like a big dude. The F5s him, gets the big pop, and that's it. The problem with this, though, is that it is an absolute fucking waste of Brock Lesnar. The same man who has main evented a lot of Manias in the last couple of years, main eventing WrestleMania 38 just last year. He main evented WrestleMania 36. He was in a world title match at 35. He was in a world title match at 33. He headlined WrestleMania 34. He headlined WrestleMania 31. He's headlined a lot of WrestleManias. So for him to be involved in an undercard match at Mania against an opponent that no one gives a fuck about, Omos has not been protected at all. He's had one match on television in the last couple of months. He is not a spectacle. Do not even give me that bull. I mean, I'm not saying that you are, Emmanuel, but not a spectacle. I'm sorry. People have argued. I've seen some chatter online about him being an attraction. That's why he doesn't wrestle all the time. Omos is awful. I've met the guy. I've interviewed the guy. One of the nicest human beings on the planet. But in the ring, he's abysmal. And he's already had his Mania moments. Omos has already won the Raw Tag Team titles of Mania. He lost to Bobby. His first loss, singles loss, the first time he's been pinned in WWE, happened at Mania fucking last year. Bobby in Omos is exactly what you're talking about. And that was a different circumstance because Bobby wasn't even around at that point, and him being even on the Mania card was a big deal because people thought he would be hurt. I was perfectly fine with that match. It was short, sweet, exactly what it needed to be, had the right result. Bobby won, and it was perfect. This has no build whatsoever. No one fucking wants to see it. And even the Bobby and Omos match made sense because it had the MVP connection. Because MVP ended up turning on Bobby to join Omos, and it made sense and whatever. This makes no sense at all. The build sounds like it's going to be awful. The match sounds like it won't be good. Omos can just barely walk down to the ring, let alone wrestle a match. I'm sorry, but like if you want Brock and me, I mean, I think the show, it's not going to make a lick of a difference. You want to put butts in the seats and make people buy this pay-per-view. That is not going to make a single fucking person want to buy this show. Alexis's father, for example, is a casual fan at best, and he is the biggest Brock Lesnar fan in the world. When I told him about Omos facing Brock at Mania, he gave me the most dumbfounded look I've ever seen in my life. It's just, it makes no fucking sense, especially if you watch the fucking product and just watch the Elimination Chamber, and the Bobby match ended in a DQ. Why the fuck would you do that if you didn't intend to pay it off for WrestleMania? I'm sorry I'm getting hot about this, but it really bothers me that we're getting this bullshit at Mania. We all thought it was a red herring. I mean, I was joking about it last week. There's no chance it could be real, and it fucking is. It's terrible, and you're right. I'm complaining about a match that'll likely be 2 minutes that Brock's probably going to win. Oh, God, fucking should win. But it's like, if you want to do this shit, make it make sense. I mean, there's a lot of different factors here. It is, and I will continue to, say this as other people have, it's a waste of Brock Lesnar. The point of Brock Lesnar at this point in his run, in addition to putting people over, which he's done a lot since coming back, I mean, I don't think that gets talked about enough, is to make people buy the show or want to watch the show that he's on. The Bobby feud went on for like close to a year, over a year. Why wouldn't you pay that off properly at WrestleMania? Honestly, even if Brock beat Bobby, I don't give a fuck. Even if the match was 5 minutes, a fight pit with those two at Mania, to me, is more of an attraction and a high-profile match than him against Omos, who is literally WWE main event material. And I'm not talking about like at the top of the card. I'm talking about like their E-show on Hulu. He doesn't compete on main event, but you know what I mean. The guy's not good. He's not a star. He has not been protected, and the match makes no sense. If you really wanted to try to make this make sense, you start building up Omos a couple of months ago. He has done nothing in ages. The Braun match at Crown Jewel, I was, again, perfectly fine with, because they were building up Omos. I didn't really give a fuck about it, but it made sense. It was someone for Braun to beat when he first came back. That felt like a spectacle. Brock Lesnar versus Omos, to me, is not a spectacle. Him hitting the F5, and I doubt it's even going to be executed properly, because Omos is just so fucking big. I'm not even really sure how you can execute that move on the guy. It's going to be a train wreck. That sounds awful. I could see what you're saying, and I appreciate you playing devil's advocate here, and it will be a spectacle if Brock beats him, but also it would be a spectacle if Brock fucking F5 Bray Wyatt. And I mean, people might argue, oh, you're burying Bray. At this point, who even gives a shit? I mean, Bray and Bobby's even, that might be just as bad, if not worse, because that build's going to be terrible too. There's other ways to go about this and make it make sense. Yeah, it's an easy person for him to beat, but you start building up Omos a couple of months ago. Or, I don't even fucking know. I can't even justify this. The match is terrible, and I have nothing positive to say about it. His second question, though. He also says, Do you think there will be any multi-man WrestleMania matches besides probably McIntyre, Sheamus, Gunther? There was a report about how Triple H apparently wants a smaller WrestleMania card this year, and some wrestlers being upset about it, since indicates even people who have been regularly on Raw and SmackDown won't get a WrestleMania paycheck. I know you made an article once about superstars in danger of being an afterthought for WrestleMania, example Ronda Rousey, but do you think WWE will make an exception for certain people and book a multi-way match, example, four-way women's number one contenders tag team match with presumably Ronda Baszler, LeRae Cross, Morgan Knox, and Carmella Niven. Carmella Niven is such a random fucking team. I like Piper Niven, but that doesn't even make any sense at all. I honestly think, if anything, Carmella and Chelsea Green would make more sense. I actually like the chemistry they had very briefly when they were on Raw together and on Raw Talk later that night on Monday. I think Carmella and Chelsea could work. Niven is just fucking random. But anyway, yeah, I absolutely, and I've said this before, I said this earlier, that I think I honestly think it's a guarantee, honestly. You talk about how they want a smaller WrestleMania card, not a lot of multi-person matches, which is good. It's not WrestleMania 2000. I can absolutely see, and I think we will, in some form or fashion, get a 4-way or 3-way, 5-way, whatever, women's tag team match at Mania. Getting, honestly, people like Candice, who I like a lot, Nikki Cross on the card, isn't really much of a priority. They're just not big stars. They're not really all that over. Liv Morgan, I do think they should make an exception for because she's that good. And she's been that over, and she's had a good year. She shouldn't be contending for the world titles at Mania, the Raw or SmackDown Women's Championships at this point. Like Tegan Nox being on the card, I love Tegan Nox, but does she need to be at Mania? No. But anyway, it's either going to be a number one contenders match, like you mentioned, with winners, maybe with the winners getting a title shot on night 2, which is what I would do. So on night 1, you could do Becky, Trish, and Lita versus Damage Control. That's really the feud there, in my opinion. I guess you could do Trish. I guess there's also the option of doing Trish and Bayley one-on-one, and then doing Becky and Lita in a multi-team match at Mania. I don't know. I honestly like the idea more of doing a multi-team women's match at Mania on night 1, number one contenders. Becky, Trish, and Lita beat Damage Control on night 2 or night 1. And then on night 2, Becky and Lita defend against very likely Ronda and Shayna. And Ronda and Shayna would win because Lita's not full-time. So I would be completely fine with that, honestly. And then you get Becky on both nights. And you don't really need most people pulling double duty, if anyone, honestly. But that would make sense. They did it a couple of years ago. I'd be okay with that. I think that's honestly a virtually guarantee. Beyond that, I don't see them. They said they're not doing the Battle Royal at WrestleMania. And the thing with that, people like acting surprised by that. Oh, why would they do the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal at WrestleMania? I agree. The whole point of the Battle Royal is to get everyone on the card. I don't really care about that personally. It's been going on for years. It is what it is. If it gets people a paycheck, cool. It sounds like they're not even doing it at WrestleMania, though. Honestly, it should be on the pre-show, because the thing fucking means nothing. They've never actually won anything of note from that Battle Royal. I've just never understood why they do it on the SmackDown before Mania, unless they're all getting a Mania paycheck from that match on the SmackDown before Mania, which kind of defeats the purpose. I'm not really sure why they do it there either, because it just doesn't really mean anything, and the match just is never any good. So the whole point of it being at Mania is to get everyone on the show. If they're not doing that, then why even do it at all? I don't mind them doing that on the pre-show, but they haven't had pre-show matches in a long time, which is, hey, fine with me. I'm fine with them not doing any pre-show matches. But, we'll see. I do believe the report that we're not getting 20 matches between the two nights. I could see them doing 8 and 8, so for a 16 total match card, which I know they used to do 16 total matches for Mania years ago, but it's so much more bearable between two nights. I just love the 2-night format at this point. So, I agree. Long story short, I agree with your idea. I do think we will get that in some form or fashion with a multi-team women's match on either night 1 or night 2 of Mania. Nike only, their first question was, what do you want to see LA Knight do at WrestleMania? I would like to see LA Knight versus Pat McAfee as a match at Mania. And where is Pat McAfee anyway? And why is he no longer on TV after being at the Royal Rumble? You know, I didn't actually think about that. LA Knight versus Pat McAfee, I would be completely on board with that. I know Pat McAfee, at this point, he is an attraction performer for WWE. I enjoyed what we got from him in Austin Theory at Mania last year. I enjoyed what we got from him in Corbin even at SummerSlam in August or July or whatever it was last year. I think it was July. Yeah, it was July. It was the only SummerSlam that was in July. I would be perfectly fine with that. They would have to start the build soon. Mania's in like a month, a little over a month. So they would have to start it very soon, probably either next week or this I mean, they've always started shit late anyway, which I'm not condoning. I'm just saying they've done that before. There's two options. There's that idea, which I didn't think about. And I'm not even sure if that's likely because, like you said, he's not on the show right now. So Pat would have to come back and then interrupt like LA Knight. They would have to start that very soon because he's not on commentary right now. The other idea is that he's not in a match. And I don't love the fact that he's not in a match. I do think he deserves to be in a match. But this is what I was... First of all, him losing to Kofi Kingston last week, love Kofi. That was fucking dumb. Kofi did not need that win. That was really stupid. LA Knight should be capitalizing off of any momentum he had coming off that Bray Wyatt feud. And he does sound like he's even more over now than he was a couple of months ago, which is great. But he's got to follow up on that momentum properly with more wins. And beating people like Kofi will help with that, not losing to him. But here's my idea, and I've said this before. I think him in a segment at Mania, like not hosting the show or getting that with Miz, him coming out demanding a Mania moment, and not a match. I mean, I guess it could turn into an impromptu match, but we got that last year with Kevin Owens, so I wouldn't do the exact same thing. But he gets interrupted by Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, I don't think we're getting a Stone Cold match at Mania this year. We found out about the match with Stone Cold last year, like in mid-February, now it's March. So I don't think it's happening. It's not like a last-minute thing. I mean, I guess it could happen, but I think it's more likely LA Knight comes out, complains about how do you have an LA WrestleMania without LA Knight, which is a very accurate statement, by the way. How can you have a Mania in LA without LA Knight? And then have him be laid out, stunned, interrupted, whatever, maybe a brief back and forth. I think to have them in the same ring and not have them talk quickly before it, ends in chaos would be a disappointment. But Stone Cold, LA Knight in the same ring at Mania, count me the fuck in. Because we got, American Badass Taker in LA Knight on Raw 30. Why not Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania? So I would love to see that. I mean, Stone Cold, if he's not going to wrestle, at least appearing would be cool. I mean, The Rock would be awesome too, but I think Stone Cold would, one, make more sense and is more plausible as well. So that's what I would do, but I don't know how likely that is. His second question, I've noticed that WWE attaches The Undertaker's One Dead Man show with every major pay-per-view event that WWE has. They've actually done it with every pay-per-view that WWE has done, I think since SummerSlam, actually. I went to the one in Nashville. Before I continue with your question, I went to the first ever one in Nashville, had a great time. They did one in Nashville. The next pay-per-view, which would have been Clash, they did it in around Clash time in Cardiff, I think. I think they did do one in the UK. The next pay-per-view after that was Extreme Rules. They did do one in Philly before Extreme Rules. I didn't go to that, but I remember they did it the night before, or around that same time. They did one... I don't think they did one in Saudi Arabia before Crown Jewel. I don't think Taker was in Saudi Arabia. They did do one in Boston right before Survivor Series in November. They did do one before the Rumble, I think. They did, because I almost went with Alexis and we just couldn't make it. They did do one in San Antonio for Taker right before the Rumble. They did do one in Montreal with Taker right before Chamber. And they're doing two actually right before Mania. One in Vegas the week before, and then one in the Mania area over Mania weekend. So they've done one with pretty much every pay-per-view. I think every pay-per-view they've done so far since Triple H took over, except for Crown Jewel. And they might have even done one in Saudi Arabia, and I don't remember. But regardless. So anyway, so his question was, do you think WWE should incorporate this with other wrestlers as well, such as Stone Cold Steve Austin, Shawn Michaels, just to name a few? I feel like WWE can make more money if they added different wrestlers for every major show. Do you think this idea could work, or should they just continue to book The Undertaker? The Undertaker one, like I said, just started over the summer. At some point, they're gonna have run every major market: New York, Boston, Texas, LA, England, Philly, Montreal, Canada. Like, they've run a lot of major markets. I don't know if they'll double dip into the same towns and cities, in a couple months from now when they start running the same cities for these pay-per-views. I don't think they will. So I would continue to do it until the numbers go down or you're running the same cities, because if I went to Nashville before, I'm not going to go to the Nashville one again. I mean, I would go to a second one just for Alexis because she hasn't seen it yet, and it was a lot of fun. It's only 90 minutes. It's a really cool time. So there is that. But I think at some point, yeah, the well will run dry. And I love the idea of doing that sort of stuff and creating more content around these big wrestling show weekends that is under the WWE umbrella. And it's a real fun time. I would like to see them do that with other wrestlers such as Stone Cold Steve Austin. It's kind of something similar to what Inside the Ropes does. I haven't been to one of their shows, but I've seen all the clips online where they bring in a performer like a William Regal or a Jericho or someone like that, Paul Heyman, Eric Bischoff, and they interview them for like I don't know, a couple hours, 90 minutes, whatever it is. This isn't exactly like an interview. Taker's not being interviewed. It's like a stand-up show, but it's him just telling stories. It's a spoken word show, basically, for 90 minutes. And that's basically what they should continue doing with other people, like Stone Cold Steve Austin. It's got to be a big enough name. The thing with Taker and why it's such an attraction is because he didn't speak for so long. He's done a million interviews in recent years, including with me. But for so long, he didn't share any of the stories, and he was always in character. You got to be careful with who you're using, because a lot, like, I don't know if Triple H would want to do something like that because he already runs the company. Like, Vince McMahon would be like a fucking get for as scummy as he can be at times, presumably, from what it sounds like. He would have a lot of stories to share. How many of them would be bullshit is the question, but that would be worth the ticket alone, I would say. With Shawn, I mean, Stone Cold has shared a lot of his stories on his podcast before. I still think it would do well because he's such a big name. It would have to be someone like that. Like Shawn, is he a big enough name to warrant people buying a ticket to go see him talk for 90 minutes? I feel like we've heard all the Shawn Michaels stories. It would have to be a big name that they haven't really overexposed in recent years. By the time the Taker thing is over, they will have overexposed him if they haven't already with this Taker tour right now. But Stone Cold would probably be the best guest. I just don't know if he wants to, travel to all these shows and do all these spoken word tours and stuff like that. I'm not exactly sure, but it would be cool, and I would buy a ticket personally. KCM with 2 questions here. The first one being, what is your review on Kairi versus Mercedes Moné from New Japan Pro Wrestling's Battle in the Valley? I hate to break it to you, Casey, I haven't actually seen it yet. I've heard it was great. I heard it was one of the best women's wrestling matches in a long time. So I will watch it. And the thing is, when you sent in that question a few days ago, I was going to watch it before today. I just didn't have time. I've been very busy. I was actually away for Elimination Chamber when the match happened, so I probably would have watched it live if I was around that weekend. It was the same night as Chamber, so I probably would have tuned in when the match happened. It was right after the pay-per-view. Didn't get a chance, and I haven't had a chance since. I will go back and watch it. I could probably just tell you now it was an excellent match without even having seen it, from what I've heard, and just knowing Kairi, knowing Mercedes in the ring, and how good they are. I can only imagine it was an amazing match, as other people have said. I'll just get around to watching it at some point soon and then give you my definitive opinion at some point if you ask the question again, maybe next week. But I heard it was great, though. On that same token, their second question was, now that Mercedes Moné is the IWGP Women's Champion, what are the opponents that you want Mercedes to wrestle against next? I can't say anyone from New Japan or from Stardom because I'm not familiar with their rosters. I have no idea who is on those rosters currently, so I can't really say from Japan. Honestly, like, I don't think she will. People getting their hopes up for, like, a Mercedes Moné tour of, like, I could see her in AEW, and I think she will be in AEW at some point, as far as at least just for a one-off, not even permanently signing there. I'm not even really sure she needs to. I don't think she should. But I think doing a couple matches in AEW is an attraction, like for a Forbidden Door type show. Wrestling people, I don't know if she would work Impact in front of 100 people. That's the sort of stuff that I want to see from her, facing people that we wouldn't have seen her been able to face previously while in WWE. So coming to AEW to face Britt Baker, maybe rekindling things with Saraya, Jamie Hayter, I feel like that would be a fucking awesome match. And Impact, you have Deonna Purrazzo. I feel like Deonna and Sasha could have a really, really good match. Mickie James, I'm sure we've seen Sasha and Mickie before in WWE, but that would be cool. Masha Slamovich, Jordan Grace. There's a lot of options from Impact, AEW. MLW doesn't really have much of a women's division, although Taya Valkyrie versus Mercedes would be really cool. Ring of Honor, Willow Nightingale versus Mercedes Moné, I feel like would be a lot of fun as well. Who's the current women's champion? Oh, Athena? Athena versus Mercedes Moné would be fucking awesome as well. So, like I said, I can't really speak to the Japan opponents because I'm not really overly familiar with the New Japan Stardom women's rosters. But seeing her do like a tour where she doesn't really sign anywhere, but she pops up in a lot of different places, facing a lot of different women in high-profile matches, I feel like would be a lot of fun and a great use of her. I mean, she's not really being used or booked by anyone in particular, but I just feel like it would bring a lot of exposure to that championship, that division, and Mercedes herself. I mean, as far as just giving us matches we never thought we would see either at all or again. So that's what I would do if I was Mercedes. But listen, you got to listen to the money too. I mean, I know her name is Moné or whatever, and that's how you pronounce her last name now. I doubt she's working fucking Impact. I don't think we'll ever see her against Jordynne Grace or Deonna Purrazzo or Mickie James. I know Scott D'Amore, I'm sure, would love to see it, but I don't think she is worth... I don't think they're worth her price tag as far as, like, I don't think she would waste her time going there, and I don't think she would just do it for fun. I would love to be wrong. I'm just not sure how, likely that is, so I guess we'll find out in due time. Next question comes from Billy from YouTube, and we got a lot of YouTube questions today. His question was, is it just me, or has WWE booking felt a little rushed and chaotic the last couple of weeks? Brock Lesnar versus Omos, the change in the women's tag team belts, the random Bray Wyatt versus Bobby Lashley match, Dominic and Rey really dragging out when we know it's ending in a Mania match. Do you think Vince McMahon is having input as it didn't feel this chaotic prior to his return, or do you think it's not chaotic and it's just me? It is chaotic, and so I agree and I disagree on a couple of things you mentioned. The Dominic and Rey stuff is exactly where it needs to be. They're dragging it out because they need to make the Mania match official for Mania. You just don't want to blow your load with it a month before Mania. I wouldn't wait for the week before the show. I would do it either this week or next week, but they're clearly waiting for the right moment to have Rey finally hit his son, or at least accept his invitation for a match at Mania. I know Dominic hasn't challenged him, but Rey might throw out the invitation one of these weeks. That has to happen soon to set up the Mania match. And to me, it's got to be a singles match, not tag team. I guess you could do tag team, but singles match to me is more ideal. So that to me is perfectly fine. That's played out exactly as I thought it would. They didn't start it too soon. They didn't wait too long, hopefully. They're doing it just around the right time. The change in the women's tag belts, to me, also felt like the plan. That didn't feel like a last-minute decision. I said earlier, to me, it feels likely that we're getting either Lita and Becky versus Ronda and Shayna on night 2, or a multi-team tag team match at Mania night 1, or whatever it might be. That, to me, feels fine. The Omos and Lesnar shit that I ranted about earlier, and Wyatt versus Bobby, are both incredibly fucking random. And like I established earlier per the tweet from @WrestleVotes, I think has been, at least maybe not confirmed, but heavily implied that Vince very likely had input in making those matches official. Very specifically Brock and Omos. And maybe because of Brock and Omos, Triple H felt, fuck, we can't do Brock and Bobby at Mania. What do I do with Bobby now? Oh, let's have him face Bray Wyatt instead. Which also makes no fucking sense. So, the women's tag team stuff feels chaotic, but for me, for a good reason, because I'm curious to see where it goes, and everything with them makes sense right now. The Brock, Bobby, Omos, and Wyatt shit is random. That is chaotic. That is rushed. That is Vince McMahon's handprints, fingerprints all over it. And that I don't care about. So you are right on that end. The Dominic and Rey women's tag team stuff I feel like is the plan. And then there's other stuff too. I feel like Charlotte and Rhea was always the plan for Triple H, and that's what they're going with. Cody and Roman was always the plan. Austin and Cena was always the plan. Gunther and Sheamus / McIntyre hopefully was always the plan. So they're going in the right direction with a lot of matches. It's really, to me, the sticking point, and I know it's only 2 matches out of 15, but Brock and Omos, Bobby and Wyatt, it's just terrible. It's just not good, dude. So hopefully they'll fix that. I don't think they will. I don't think both builds will be, either build will be great. I don't think either match will be great. The less said about it, the better, I guess. No L from Facebook, first question. Do you think we will see Team Becky versus Team Bayley at WrestleMania? I mentioned this earlier. I don't know if we will. Again, it's one of 2 options. I'll say this quickly one more time. I think it's either Becky, Trish, and Lita versus all of Damage Control at Mania on night 1, and then also a number 1 contenders women's tag team match on night 1, and then a night 2, Becky and Lita defending against Ronda and Shayna, with Ronda and Shayna winning. Or we get Bayley and Trish one-on-one, which, hey, cool. Sounds like an attraction. Not like a match I'm clamoring for, but it would be cool. We might get that match, and then Becky and Lita either defending in a multi-team women's match at Mania, or just up against Shayna and Ronda. Either way, I feel like either option is fine. I prefer option 1 personally, which is what you suggested, but I guess we'll find out soon. Because I think Becky's been feuding with Bayley for so long. I don't want a singles match between them at Mania. And I think Bayley would prefer a one-on-one match with Trish. That's a higher profile match for her, but she's also lost so much, I don't really care about her facing Trish. I assume she would win. It's a cool match to do, but it's not like she's been positioned as a star like when Charlotte faced Trish a couple of years ago, or when... Bayley is a star, don't get me wrong, but it's not like she's champion right now, or I don't know. Maybe that's what makes it more unpredictable, is the fact that she's not a champion and Trish wouldn't have to lose, but I feel like she should. Either way, I prefer what you suggested, Team Becky versus Team Bayley, and then have Becky pull double duty with Lita on the next night and face Ronda and Shayna on that show. Their second question, will we see Mercedes Moné appear in AEW sometime this year? Like I said before, I do think we will. I don't think she'll sign there. I don't think she should sign there. I think that would be dumb. Their women's division is very talented, and they have they've had main events on Dynamite and Rampage and whatever. Specifically, Dynamite's more important. Rampage, who gives a fuck about? But, they've been positioned well. It's improved from where they were. I don't know. I just wouldn't. She would feel like, especially with Saraya coming in, and I like Saraya a lot. She's so far felt like just another woman on that roster. I don't know if Mercedes, she's so talented, if she can break that stigma. I would hope that she can. I wouldn't even risk it. I would have her go to AEW and wrestle a couple matches. I just don't know if Tony Khan would want to use her, have her be put over, and then just have that be it, and then she doesn't sign it. From that perspective as well, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense from a booking standpoint. If she's not signed there, and she comes in and beats her women, and she doesn't sign again, then what's the point? But if she comes in and loses, to me, that, hurts her stock a little bit. It hurts her, maybe not star power, she'll be fine, but it's like, bring her in just to lose when she's on a hot streak right now, and she's the IWGP Women's Champion. How would New Japan feel about that personally, So, it's kind of a win-lose. I could see her being involved in Forbidden Door, though. They haven't officially announced it yet, but assuming they do one in June, I could see her being on that show and maybe facing the AEW Women's Champion or Jade or someone like that. That'd be pretty cool. Justin K. from Facebook. Being a fellow journalist, me being a freelancer, what has been the best thing for you to date as a wrestling journalist and why? I'll try to keep this brief, but a lot of different things. I love being able to do what I do, and especially the last couple of years, being able to interview so many people, so many doors have been opened to a lot of different companies and opportunities. I guess just the opportunities I've gotten from doing what I do, a lot of which I would have never imagined. Covering Mania, doing AEW stuff, working with all these different promotions, going to all these shows, interviewing people in person, I got to watch Arjun, I've mentioned this before, we watched Logan Paul versus The Miz before the match even happened. We saw them rehearsing their match for SummerSlam last year, because we went in to go interview Logan Paul right before that match at SummerSlam. That was an incredible opportunity. I got to go with dinners, or two dinners rather, where Big E was present and Bianca to talk to them a little bit about the NIL program the WWE is doing. So the list goes on and on and on, getting to travel, see a lot of great places, meet great people. The list goes on and on, but especially in recent years, it's been very rewarding. As someone who always loved wrestling anyway, that's probably the biggest thing for me. I've always loved wrestling, maybe not my entire life, but I started watching 15 years ago. Not nearly as long as some of you, I'm sure. But having been a wrestling fan for almost 15 years now, 15 years in April, and then having always loved writing my entire life, being able to combine those two passions for me has been the best thing of all of this, because it doesn't really feel like work. It's work, trust me, it's fucking work, and you can ask pretty much anyone that knows me well enough. I get very little sleep, I go to sleep late, and it's just a lot of shit. I watch a lot of fucking wrestling, I go to a lot of shows, do a lot of work, a lot of interviews, a lot of reviews and stuff like that, but it's always very rewarding, and it never feels like work, because I enjoy all of it, or most of it, but yeah, not 99% of it, let's say that. I don't want to say everything, but a lot of it is very rewarding, most of it is very rewarding, and I'm very fortunate and lucky and grateful to be able to do what I do, and for you guys to check out my content, whether it be audio stuff, video stuff, written stuff, whatever it might be. I appreciate all the support regardless. So it's been an amazing journey for me over the last, with Bleacher Report, it's been 13 years. That was really where my wrestling journalism, career got started, leading to me getting my journalism degree, getting my master's in journalism. A lot of doors have opened up from wanting to write about wrestling in the last 13 years, and I could not be happier or more grateful about that. Next question from @Iwagu91 from Twitter. Their first question was, your thoughts on Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly as a team? P.S. about the question last week regarding Time Machine, Kushida, and Chris Sabin did team up in 2018. I don't remember them. If I did watch that in Ring of Honor, or maybe it was New Japan, I don't watch New Japan really at all, so I don't remember that. But Roderick and Kyle O'Reilly as a team, did we ever really get them as a team? I know Roddy and Bobby were champions for a little. I'm trying to think. Did we ever get Kyle O'Reilly and Roddy as a team? I think we did. Did we not? Was that in 2018? Did Bobby get hurt? I think it was. I think it was that Mania weekend. Bobby was hurt. So I think Roddy filled in for Bobby. So we did get Kyle O'Reilly and Roddy as a team for a little while in 2018. And then Roddy and Bobby also teamed up a little bit in 2019, 2020, whatever. So they were a great team. They were, I mean, listen, all of Undisputed Era, it kind of blends together because all four guys work so well together. That was like the perfect faction. And then, like, I would have loved to have seen it in AEW. That unfortunately fell apart. In WWE, they never got called up. It's just they never really reached their full potential on a major stage outside of NXT, and that really bums me out. But all of their runs in the tag team division, they were together for a long time, and it never got stale for me because they were so fucking great. So, yeah, any combination of those guys together is an automatic win for me. His second question, would you be fine with Gunther defending the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania against just Drew McIntyre? I guess I'd be fine with it, but I wouldn't be happy with it. I do think it does Sheamus a disservice to not be in that match at Mania. I mean, Sheamus has been tied to McIntyre at the hip for months now in the tag team division. Why would you do that if you weren't going to do something with Drew and Sheamus in the same match at Mania? I mean, honestly, I would just do just Sheamus and Gunther. But you have to have Drew in a match at Mania and a big match at Mania. That's a big match. I would be okay with it because it's not like it's Gunther and fucking Madcap Moss again or whatever. Gunther and Drew is a fresh match. And Gunther, Drew's a big name for Gunther to beat or to beat Gunther for the belt. I just feel like Sheamus should be in that match because Sheamus should be the one to take that championship away from Gunther. He has to be the one to dethrone Gunther as the Intercontinental Champion and be champ. McIntyre's champ is fine too, I guess. I just really think it should be Gunther personally. Next question from also at Iwagu91. Your thoughts on Chris Bay? I think he's great. I think Chris Bay is an awesome competitor. He's got charisma. I'm just shocked he's still in Impact. I know he does New Japan stuff too. I'm just shocked that he's only in Impact and he hasn't moved on to WWE or AEW yet. I mean, he was working, like, doing jobs and stuff for WWE on 205 Live back in the day, like 5 years ago. But he's damn good, and he's just, even in Impact, honestly, I feel like he really hasn't reached his full potential. He looks like a star. He comes across like a star. He works like a star. But he's only had one X Division title reign, and that was like 3 years ago, very briefly. He wasn't champion for very long at all. And he hasn't really done much of note since then. He's currently teaming with Ace Austin, in Bullet Club, and they have awesome chemistry. But, like, I want to see them get a tag team title run, and they probably will soon in Impact, hopefully. I don't know. I just think they're great, and I would love to see them do more. I would love to see him do more on a bigger stage at some point. I feel like he'd be a great get for either of the major companies, AEW or WWE. And AEW might get lost in the shuffle, same for WWE, but at some point he's got to move on, in my opinion. And assuming they want him, which why the fuck would they wouldn't, in my personal opinion. At Reborn Again from the Twitter machine, John Ritland from Twitter and on YouTube, Real Honesty with John Ritland. Check it out. Does great work. John's first question, Bobby Lashley versus Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania. This has disaster written all over it, doesn't it? Yes, it fucking does. I already talked about it earlier. I talked a lot about Brock and Omos, but quickly on the Bobby and Bray front, even that match doesn't make sense. It's not even a match I want to see. I know they're both stars, they're both over and whatnot. Bray's on SmackDown. Bobby's on Raw. Bobby, I think, is a heel. I don't fucking know. Bray, I don't know what the fuck he's supposed to be either. His storyline so far, the Uncle Howdy stuff, lost my interest a long time ago. He was really over, and he still is really over at all the shows I've been to, but at all the shows I've attended, he's been really over. It's just this storyline has not kept me interested at all. To me, it jumped the shark at Royal Rumble when we got no major reveal, and it was more of the same shit. He hasn't wrestled at all. It just feels like oil and water, this pairing. It doesn't sound like it'll be a very intriguing match as far as, like, match quality. The feud itself, there's no storyline significance at all. It's one guy from one brand calling out a star from another brand. It's not a match that even makes sense. They have no storyline history at all. Bray doing the supernatural Firefly Funhouse shit again. I thought that shit was done. Is fucking stupid. I don't know, man. This whole thing jumped the shark for me as soon as it was even teased. I just don't care. I cannot bring myself to care. John's second question, should either of the main women's championship matches close out night one of WrestleMania 39? If so, which one and why? Good question. Not Bianca and Asuka. I do think Bianca and Asuka is going to be a great match. I'm looking forward to it. That's the match that I would do. The build so far is lacked. You could say the same thing about Charlotte and Rhea, but I think it'd be pretty fucked up if, Asuka lost the women's Royal... I mean, this has happened before in WWE a lot, but it would be pretty messed up if Asuka lost the Women's Rumble, but she main evented WrestleMania anyway for the other championship that she didn't, initially choose. That would be pretty messed up. So it would have to be Charlotte and Rhea, and I do think that might even be the better match anyway. They have history. We know they work well together. I'm honestly more excited for that match, given the story history there, and that Rhea has to avenge her loss to Charlotte, her many losses to Charlotte from over the years. That's the match I'm most excited for personally, and I would have that close on night one. Now, of the two, though, I don't know if you guys have asked this before here on the show, but I've said this before. If it was up to me, and the biggest reason why I would have that main event Mania, and it probably will main event Mania, is because Charlotte, at this point, who cares? But, the Women's Rumble winner didn't main event last year either. And for the right reasons. Charlotte and Rhea wasn't great at all. Charlotte would get fucked out of a Mania main event for 2 years in a row. But I'm not even saying, I feel bad for Charlotte, sympathy for Charlotte, whatever. It's more so for Rhea, who in theory should win a main event at WrestleMania. And two, the match makes sense. So I wouldn't complain if that goes on last. The match might not be amazing. I think it will be a great match, but who knows? I just think the best stories should go on last, and it's not even a bad match. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus the Usos for the tag team titles should main event at WrestleMania. I'm more excited for that match personally. Rhea and Charlotte I'm excited for as well, but Owens and Zayn versus the Usos, assuming that is the direction they're going in, I'm not sure why it wouldn't be. That to me feels like a Mania main event on night one, and then Roman and Cody on night two. So that's just me. I would do that though, but I'm not sure if they would actually have that close out the show. It'll probably be Charlotte and Rhea. You'll get no complaints out of me on that. I just feel like the tag team title match has the better story and very likely could be the better match. But that's just me. Second question, I already answered John's second question. At Kyle Rochelle 19, how can Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns make their match interesting enough rather than just Cody winning the Rumble and Roman's feud with Sami being over? Roman has been focused on Sami for a long time now. In storyline, why should Reigns care about Rhodes? That's a valid question. A lot of people have said that. The Sami and Roman stuff went on for so long. How do you go from that to a feud kind of coming out of nowhere? To me, Cody and Roman sells itself because it's a big, big match. As far as storyline, why should I be invested in this as much as I was Sami and Roman? I agree with that. It's not as storyline intriguing as Roman and Sami was at Elimination Chamber. But that's what the next couple of weeks leading up to WrestleMania should be about. The Heyman and Cody promo was a perfect example of how to build up that match heading into WrestleMania. I'm not talking about the match or the promo where Heyman was on the Titantron. I'm talking about the initial promo a couple of weeks ago that sold me on their match at Mania before it was even officially announced, before Roman, ran through Sami in Elimination Chamber. We need more of that. And I assume we're getting that on SmackDown this week, with Cody and Roman both being on the show. I don't know if we'll get the full-on verbal exchange between the two. I don't know if we're getting that quite yet. They might be saving that for another time as we get closer to Mania. You don't want to peak too early. But to me, it's all about Cody wanting to do what his father never could, win the World Championship. And also, your question was, why should Roman care about Cody? Because Cody could pose the biggest threat to date to his championship. The bloodline drama brewing in the background, but even more so than that, Cody is a massive threat. He beat Seth Rollins 3 times last year on 3 consecutive shows. He has not lost since coming back to WWE, has Cody Rhodes. He won the Royal Rumble. He's been undefeated. He's massively over. Roman's got a target on his back, and Cody is the guy to beat Roman for that championship. That's why Roman should care. Not because they've had history dating back 10 years, although they do, dating back to the Shields Rhodes Brothers stuff in late 2013. Not even that, but it's just the fact that Cody is a threat. Even more so than Sami. Sami had more storyline animosity with the Bloodline after what happened with them over the last 10 months. Cody doesn't have that same built-in storyline. He has his storyline. Roman has his storyline. I think it meshes perfectly. It's a different dynamic than Roman and Sami, and Cody's just a bigger threat. I think there's a very big chance that Cody walks out with that championship as he should. There's also a big chance Roman retains. But I think it's more unpredictable, and Roman should be worried in storyline for that reason alone. Among other stuff, and hopefully we'll get to that in the weeks to come. If they don't build up any more bad blood between the two between now and Mania, I would be disappointed. You can't just go off the fact the match sells itself. It does sell itself, but you should also put in an effort to build up the match in the coming weeks. And hopefully we do get that, more animosity, and Roman beating the fuck out of Cody, or Cody threatening to take his titles, and if he does, then ending the bloodline in the process, because those titles kind of keep the group together. So we'll see. Hopefully they can build more of an issue between the two, establish more of an issue between them in the coming weeks heading into WrestleMania. At new_n_co TV from Twitter, their first question was, your thoughts on Bray Wyatt feuding with Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania 39. I pretty much believe that the hype for Bray Wyatt has died out, and the Firefly Funhouse segment on Friday even made it worse. I get the feeling that Bray might lose at Mania again. I mean, Bray's lost so much at Mania, it's hard to even care at this point. You can count the Firefly Funhouse stuff. Was that what it was called? The Firefly Funhouse match? Whatever it was, a WrestleMania 36. I guess it does count as a win for Bray, but not a formal win in the ring. He's already lost 3 or 4 other times. Who even gives a shit at this point? I talked about Bray and Bobby a moment ago, but on the subject of Bray, I'll mention this quickly, because I said this on Twitter a few times in recent days. To see Bray come back approaching his character with a more realistic approach, with a more realistic take on it, speaking from the heart as a normal human being. Not that he hasn't done that lately. He does, but we're still getting Firefly Funhouse shit. Fucking why? I thought that we were done with that stuff. It was entertaining 3 or 4 years ago. It's time to move on from that. I don't know if that's a Bray call or a Triple H call, a Vince call, whoever's fucking call it is. It's dumb. I know they want to sell merch and shit, but it's like, oh my God, it's so stale. I just don't care. It doesn't even mesh with Bobby Lashley. But the Uncle Howdy stuff was intriguing for a few months, and it quickly lost my interest because it went nowhere. After almost 4 or 5 months, we're still in the same place we were 5 months ago. It comes to a point where you drag something out for so long, people lose interest. It's not a matter of, oh, long-term storytelling, you have to like it. No, I love long-term storytelling. The storyline sucks because there's no real development. There has not been no fucking development with any of the shit with Bray in months. I love Bray. I'm glad that he's back. I wouldn't want him fired. I don't think Bray's terrible. I'm not sitting here saying Bray's awful. I'm not saying it was a mistake to bring him back. I'm just saying what we've gotten from him since he came back, at least in the last month or two, has been disappointing. And they have to correct course with him before he becomes damaged goods again like he was the first time he was in the company 7-8 years ago. His second question, with Jade Cargill having not been seen on TV as of late, when and will she drop the TBS title? If it's not Chris Statlander or Mercedes Moné, I got a couple of options on who will. Camille or Kylan King. They're suitable to take on Jade at either Revolution or Double or Nothing. Kylan King does nothing for me at all. I think she's talented. I just haven't seen a shred of personality from her whatsoever in any company she's worked for, so that would be a terrible idea. Camille would be interesting, but you're a big NWA fan. Those are both NWA women. I doubt they get Camille to work into their AEW show. She didn't even work an AEW show originally, but she did appear on Dynamite, I think, to hype up the match with, Layla Hirsch. I almost forgot her name because she's been gone for so long. But Layla Hirsch, to promote their match for Empower a few years ago, and that was a great match. But anyway, it's got to be Statlander. I think she should be back soon. I don't know that for a fact. I'm just kind of doing the math in my head from when she had surgery, how long she was expected to be out. She should be back soon. Hopefully she doesn't come back tonight or on Friday and they set up the match for Saturday. That would be fucking dumb. If they're going to have Chris beat Jade, which at this point no one else makes sense, I don't think it's going to be Mercedes. I don't think Mercedes signs with AEW to beat Jade Cargill. I wouldn't complain about that. I just don't think it's going to happen. I do think it should be Chris at this point because they haven't done it already. They've waited this fucking long. It's got to be soon. We're going to have to sit through another 2.5 months of Jade as champion, and it's not her fault. It's just that the lack of development is really annoying and frustrating. I do think they're waiting until Chris is ready to come back, which hopefully should be soon. I honestly do see Jade facing Chris at Double or Nothing and Jade winning. Or, I'm sorry, God forbid, Chris winning. Jade winning, where I don't even know what to say. Imagine waiting all that time for Chris Statlander to come back and she fucking loses. Good God, could you imagine that? But anyway, no, Jade should lose to Chris at Double or Nothing. I would have done it at Revolution, but I don't think Chris Statlander's ready to come back yet, so that's probably why. Last 2 questions. First one from Mike Ponek from Twitter. What in the blue hell has happened with Bray Wyatt? Pitch Black Mountain Dew match did nothing for Bray or LA Knight. Yeah, that's what he said in the question. I already talked about Bray a moment ago, but yeah, he's just been... It's been gradually downhill since he came back. He's still over. I was at the Rumble. I've been to a couple of SmackDowns. He's very over. It's just that what he's doing storyline-wise is boring. It just isn't interesting. It's not exciting. It's not entertaining. It's just more of the same bullshit that we were seeing from him a couple of years ago. He's back in the same exact spot he was in fucking 3 years ago. 2-3 years ago. I don't know, man. I want to see something different from the guy. I'm not sure if he's to blame, if it's more, if they gave him too much creative freedom, or if Triple H gave him shitty creative, or if it's a Vince thing. I have no fucking clue. But the Uncle Howdy thing so far has gone nowhere, and it's gone on for so long, I just don't give a shit anymore. If it's revealed to be Bo Dallas at this point, I'm not sure how much people would care to begin with, but if that happens soon, if it ends up being Bo Dallas, however many people would have cared probably will not care when it happens, because they've waited way too fucking long. I say the same thing about AEW all the time. Like with the Daniel Garcia thing, if he eventually turns on Jericho, I don't give a fuck, because it should have happened over the summer, when it was at its hottest, and they waited way too long, and now it probably won't happen. And if it does, I don't care. It's the same thing with Uncle Howdy. I do not give a shit. Why the fuck is he even teaming with Uncle Howdy, or rather with Bray Wyatt anyway? They're apparently aligned now? Why? They never explained that. Why the fuck would he align with him? It's just, the whole thing makes no sense. Bill Meister, and maybe it does make sense, but they haven't properly expressed it yet. I know some things they can't just throw into the people's face. Some things should be subtle, but it seems like everyone that I've seen talk about it on Twitter and elsewhere has no fucking clue what's going on with him. No one can accurately explain what's going on with Bray Wyatt, and that's a problem. Final question at BillMeister88. Can you settle a debate that me and my friend have? Who is better in the ring technically, Charlotte Flair or Becky Lynch? Not promos, just in ring. For me, Becky Lynch isn't even in the top 4. He listed Bianca, Bayley, Charlotte, Rhea Ripley. And also, who are your top 5 WWE women's wrestlers currently? Quickly on that front, I have a lot. I like a majority of both divisions. I think there's a lot of great women on both brands. I'm a big, as you guys probably know from me talking about it, Tegan Nox. Massive fan of Tegan Nox. I think she's great. Would love to see more of her on SmackDown. Rhea Ripley, massive fan of her. I'm a big Emma fan. She's done nothing since coming back, but I've always really liked Emma. And Bayley I've always loved as well. She's just great, and that's always going to be a favorite of mine. She'll probably always be my favorite women's wrestler, likely ever. Even more so than Tegan, but Bayley's great too. I like Bianca. Bianca's great. Mia Yim I like. Candice LeRae. I can't really limit it to just 5, but those are a few. But to answer your question, who is better technically in the ring, Charlotte or Becky? That's a great question. Honestly, and people may not like this answer, but Charlotte Flair. I think of the two, I think Charlotte Flair is better in the ring than Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch is excellent. That's not to say she hasn't had great matches, even without Charlotte. Becky, she's probably even improved in the ring from where she was even a couple of years ago. The Bianca matches were phenomenal. Mania and SummerSlam, and some of the matches they had in 2021 as well were very good. Becky had a lot of great matches during her run as women's champion. It really is a toss-up. I don't know if I would argue with you if you would say Becky. I just think of Charlotte, like Charlotte has had a lot of stinkers as well, don't get me wrong. And you can also say, oh, this person carried Charlotte, but I don't know, man. Charlotte had a great run in NXT when she was still very inexperienced, having great matches with pretty much everyone. Bayley, Sasha Banks, Becky as well. Great matches across the card. Again, you could say, oh, they carried her. But Charlotte has had enough star-making matches and moments that it's not just Charlotte was carried through this match. The Asuka match at WrestleMania 34 was fantastic. In 2016, the string of matches she had with Sasha Banks across the year were phenomenal. Just main eventing pay-per-views, Raw. Some were better than others, but a majority of those matches were quite good. The Nikki Bella matches even. Nikki Bella's not amazing, but Nikki Bella improved as well. Those matches were good. She had some decent matches with Paige in 2015, 2016. 2017, she didn't have a lot of matches, like big matches. She just had a lot of matches with Natalya, I remember, on SmackDown that were okay. 2018, the matches with Asuka, the matches with Becky were great. 2019, the match with Trish from SummerSlam really stands out to me. I thought they had an excellent non-title match at SummerSlam in Toronto that year. That was really good. 2020, the Rhea Ripley matches were awesome. Those were really, really good. So I would go Charlotte. I think in the ring, she's slightly better than Becky. Your opinion about, she's not even the best in the top 4 in the company between Bianca and Bayley, Charlotte, Rhea. You might be right, you might be wrong. There's the fact of the matter is that all those women you mentioned are excellent. There's a lot of great women you didn't even mention there that are also very, very good. And you're talking just in ring. You're not even talking character stuff or promos. Promos, I would say Becky, absolutely. Charlotte's promos are they can sometimes be good, especially when she's a heel. Becky's promos just feel more natural to me. She's gotten so much better on the mic. She's phenomenal. Charlotte's promos largely are not good. In the ring, I would probably go Charlotte, though. I would probably go Charlotte. I might have a different answer tomorrow if you asked me, but I think today I'm going to go Charlotte. As much as some people may not like that answer, I would go Charlotte. So that's going to do it, guys, for episode, 483 here today as we quickly approach episode 500 here on the 10-year anniversary of #AskGSM. 2013 marked the first year of the show, so 2023 is going to mark 10 years of #AskGSM. So when we approach that milestone of 500 shows, 500 weeks, 500, the 10-year anniversary, we'll do something special for that show. Until then, though, we're going to continue on business as usual here on the show. If you want to tweet me with your questions to answer, do so on Twitter at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. Last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section in this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Have an awesome one, guys. Enjoy the month of March. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.